My biggest deal I think I ever sold was the McLeod Hospital deal there in Carolina Forest.
Really?
We put that deal together.
Holy cow. All right, episode 12 of The Deal Ranch. Mark Lazarus, thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I don't really know where to start with you because you're certainly a legend in this town, but you have your hand in a lot of different things. You've established the amusement park kind of attraction down here. You work at Waccamaw Land and Timber, and as we heard this morning in our men's group, you've helped with some pretty significant transactions there as well.
Sure.
And then you've helped as county councilman a couple different times, right? As vice and then chair. So I'll let you do an intro on yourself, but I want to hear more about the story today.
Sure. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely.
This is great. So my dad was a car dealer in Gastonia, North Carolina. And in 1975, 76, you had the oil embargo. And banking industry was going south, and it was almost like 2008.
Yep.
What we all experienced, but it was back then, and so we went through some hard times. But he owned some race teams.
Interesting.
He drove. He didn't drive, but he was the car owner, and they had Formula Super V cars. We actually raced for the national championship for the United States in Hockenheim, Germany. His car held the Chimney Rock hill climb for years and years. A guy named John Finger out of Greenville, South Carolina, was our driver.
No way.
And then our other driver, my dad's driver, was Bob Lazier. And in fame, Bob's son, Buddy, actually won the Indy 500 many years later.
No way.
So, pretty cool experiences traveling all over the country as a young kid in Winnebago with my parents, going to all these races. But that got my dad thinking about this drive real race cars. And we had some friends that lived in Gastonia with us, and they had moved to Myrtle Beach and started a development company called Sands Investments.
Interesting.
And they were doing the original, what we call Stack-a-Shack units all over the beach. Yeah. And anyway, my dad needed to kind of find another business to get into. And he had learned a guy, John DeLorean, if you remember, did the stainless car. He had started Grand Prix of America up in Troy, Michigan. And my dad went and visited him, and they learned all about it and got a guy from out in California, did some design work. Yep. He presented it to Les Morris and Tom Ball, and they said, hey, come on. So they found a piece of property on the south end of Myrtle Beach. We partnered with the Bellamy Law Firm. Actually, was our partners at the time, and Les and Tom. And we built the first Myrtle Beach Grand Prix on the south end. And then in 1970, that was in 76.
Okay.
77, we built the North Myrtle Beach Grand Prix. And then in 1984, my dad bought out all the partners, and it became our real family business.
Interesting.
And then in, I guess it was 2006, the same year the Myrtle Beach Pavilion closed down, we closed North Myrtle Beach Grand Prix.
Why so?
To redevelop it. And I redeveloped. It was my first big development job project. Was we did a Bilo anchored shopping center there.
Interesting.
And wound up selling it out to a group out of Virginia Beach. But we had the original Grand Prix on the south end that everybody remembers, had the speedboats and the go-karts and the Grand Prix cars and all that. We had a 25-year lease on that property. And after 25 years, they decided not to lease us the property anymore.
Oh, no.
And so we had to go through a transition. Well, we shut it down. Okay. And then they actually ran it for a couple of years. And then we had Wild Water and Wheels. We built in 1980, 1989, 1990 opened it, right after Hurricane Hugo. And we just shut Wild Water down this past year after a 32-year run there to do another real estate development there on the property. We've got 16 acres there, so we're going to redevelop it into a commercial outlet there. So anyway, we had it, and then in the meantime, to backtrack a little bit, I went to Myrtle Beach High School. We moved here. My dad picked up the family and moved us all here.
So in '76, that just opened the first part.
First part then. That's
so
right.
how old were you when you?
I was 15.
Okay.
Moved to Myrtle Beach. I mean, I lived in Gastonia, North Carolina, and my dad said, "We're moving to Myrtle Beach." I mean, how can you go wrong?
That's
right.
That's an upgrade. Yeah.
So we moved to Myrtle Beach, and '76. I went to the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade here in Myrtle Beach.
Got it.
And I finished up 9th grade in Gastonia. My claim to fame there is I played basketball with James Worthy.
Really?
At Greer Junior High School, yeah.
No way.
We were in the same class. And then, went 10th, 11th, 12th grade here, and then worked at the Grand Prix most of the whole time there.
Cleaning toilets?
Cleaning toilets, picking up cigarette butts.
Right.
They wouldn't even let me run the rides. So I kind of made my way from the bottom to the top there. Did that, and then in 1979, I decided to go to Fork Union Military Academy as a postgraduate after high school. I wanted to play college football. I was recruited by the Citadel in South Carolina, but really wanted to go to North Carolina. My grades weren't that great coming out of Myrtle Beach High School, so I went to Fork Union. And so that summer I worked at the Sand Dunes Hotel and actually worked the construction there at the Sand Dunes and helped build the hotel and ran the recreation program for the kids and did bellhop and everything else there at the Sand Dunes for that summer. Yeah, a little bit of everything. So I did that, and then went to Fork Union, wound up getting recruited by University of North Carolina as a preferred walk-on.
What position did you
football.
play?
I was a tight end and punter. I punted mostly.
No way.
Yeah, so went there and I played on the last ACC championship team that North Carolina has had, and that was in 1980. Wow. So that was my freshman year, and it was Lawrence Taylor's senior year. So I got to know Lawrence and famous Amos Lawrence, Kelvin Bryant, Rick Donnelly, Ron Wooten, some major football players in the NFL later on. And then actually my roommate, Brian Johnston, he wound up playing for the '86 Giants Super Bowl team.
No way.
Yeah, so every time he comes to town, I have him show off his Super Bowl.
I like that.
I
like that.
So anyway, finished up in North Carolina and came back home and was working for my dad back in the business.
So did you do all 4 years there?
No, only did 2.5 years there. And then came home. Yeah. And so came and started working in the business and didn't really like what I was doing.
What were you doing then?
Just working as a manager for my dad in the Grand Prix. I had a friend of mine, Mike Hilton, was getting ready to open up Showbiz Pizza. And ran into Mike one night and he asked me what I was doing. I said, I just, not what I want to do. He said, well, pack up and come Saturday. This was probably on a Monday.
Yeah.
He said, come Saturday, we're going to leave and go to Texas for 2 weeks to learn how to run a Showbiz Pizza. Got home, called my dad and said I quit.
How'd he take that?
Not too good. Went and jumped in the station wagon with Mike and 2 other guys, and we went to Texas and learned how to run a Showbiz Pizza and opened the one at the Galleria Shopping Center, which is now, I think, a shooting range.
Yeah.
They're getting ready to be now, but that's where it originally was. We were the #1 Showbiz in the country the first summer.
Was that his first franchise team?
That was Mike's first franchise also.
Wow.
So then that was in '83, I guess. So then in 1984, my dad decided to, he put it together to buy out his partners in the Grand Prix, and he called me one night and he said, look, if you want to make this a family business, now's the time we're buying out the partners. And so I resigned from Showbiz after a year and then went back to work for my dad, and the rest is history. I've been there ever since, and we built Wild Water and Wheels. We've been in Virginia Beach. We've been in Augusta, Georgia, had locations there. And then kind of came home. We were down to just Wild Water and Wheels. Yeah. And in the meantime, I had served as chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. That's kind of what got me into politics.
What year would that have been?
Well, that's probably about 30 years ago. So I think I was right at 30 years old. So whatever date that was.
93?
Yeah, about 93, yeah. So did that, became chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, kind of got my feet wet into politics there. And one night decided, I was at a Republican meeting at the old Myrtle Square Mall, and the guy that was for District 2, John Cost, said he wasn't going to run anymore. So I just said, okay, I'll run.
For chairman?
For District 2, councilman.
Okay.
Council member,
Councilman.
yeah. So I called my wife. I said, guess what I did? Click. So I did that and served 4 years there. Didn't particularly care for the leadership and decided to run for chairman.
Yep.
And lost by about 100 votes for the chairman against an incumbent. So that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Sat out, and then Tom Rice actually won the seat as chairman.
Yeah.
And then they formed the 7th Congressional District congressman seat.
Got it.
And Tom ran for that and won, so that left about 2.5 years left on unexpired term.
Oh, wow.
And so I ran for that and won against 5 other people, and then run unopposed for the next term as chairman.
Oh.
And so I served 9.5, I guess it was about 9.5 years in county council government, and then ran twice again and lost both times. But in the meantime, probably 30 years ago almost, I got my real estate license.
Yeah.
Just to have it.
Yeah, I always wondered why that was, because you're so busy and you do all these things. So you were operating the family business, and we can dive into the intricacies of it, but then you got involved with local or county government, rather. And then also you work or you tell the story here.
Yeah, so I got my real estate
up?
license, and my parents actually had a company called Grand Prix Real Estate. My mom was the broker, and she sold, while I was in college, she had started her career in real estate, and was selling resales for a place at the beach condominiums there at the Old Ocean Forest.
Nice.
And she did that, and anyway, came home, they started a company called Grand Prix Real Estate. And so I just had my license hung there. I didn't really do anything with it.
Yeah.
And then got involved in county council and really started learning more. It was really the best education I ever got. The 9.5 years that I did it was fantastic. I learned about development. I learned about how government works and everything. I'd never really been involved in it.
What attracted you to doing it? So I know you said why you started it, but like, what made you keep wanting to run, and like what about it intrigued you?
I guess get it from my mother's side of the family. I like being involved and doing things and helping people, and was really intrigued with it. And I always said if I had known more about it earlier in life, I would have probably been a political science major or something instead of business. But anyway, I really enjoyed it, and enjoyed meeting the people, enjoyed being involved on the front end of getting things done.
Yeah.
And so I did it, and then during that time, right after that, I decided to. I knew Keith Henson at Waccamaw Land and Timber, and met Keith and knew him, and he invited me to hang my shingle over there with him.
That's right.
And I did, and been there for, I don't know, 15, 18 years now, I guess.
Wow.
And doing a lot of real estate deals.
So when you were working with the county, you said that gave you the most exposure to learning real estate, right? You have people coming in trying to get things rezoned. You're trying to plan out future use and development. When you got to Waccamaw Land and Timber, do you want to give an overview of their shop, right? So they own a lot of local land here, but like, what was your role there, and kind of what is their company?
Well, that shop fit me
because
it's not like going into a Century 21 or something that you have to be in. You have to. We didn't sell homes. I'm not much of walking through homes with a family trying to sell a house. I really was intrigued with the commercial real estate side of it. And the best part of it is Keith and his partners, they all owned a lot of property.
Yeah.
So we were basically focusing on their properties to sell. And so it really worked out great, but it opened opportunities for others. And then with my time working as county council chairman with the Economic Development Corporation and learning more about what it does, it kind of helped me see about bringing in new businesses and how you go about it and what we need to do and sell and everything else. So I just kind of leveraged my teachings, learnings over the time, and also, you meet a lot of people, so it's not always what you know, it's who you know.
That's for sure.
That kind of worked out, to my favor to be able to do that after I was off of council.
So what were the typical transactions, or what were you working on there? Were you selling the land that Keith and the partners owned and helping bring in developers to sell some of these parcels, or were you kind of functioning as a broker for a lot of people coming in to buy deals? Like, what were the standard transactions, or what were some of your favorite transactions you did when you were there?
Yeah, a lot of them. I mean, so my first two was I sold a piece of property to a developer to build a multi-family over in Carolina Forest when it was really fresh.
Really?
Over in Carolina Forest. Wow. So I did that one, and then my first real deal was Keith's company owns Forest Square, which is where Ollie's is, out on Carolina Forest Boulevard. And my first Cecil Worsley with the Worsley Companies, gas stations. Wow. Yeah. His mother lived next door to my parents, and I knew Cecil growing up. He went to Coastal Academy, and I went to Myrtle Beach.
Is he a Wilmington guy?
Wilmington guy, okay, out of Wilmington, yeah. So I called Cecil, and I just said, Cecil, I got this great spot for a great convenience store, and that was my first real deal that I put together, gas station deal together. Wow. For Cecil. So we did that, and then in Carolina Forest, the Dunkin' Donuts Plaza that's there, it's got a Sigmund Eye Care and
there used
Plantation
to be an insurance
Realty
in there. Yeah.
And then right down from it, did the insurance, Bobby Kelly Insurance.
Yep.
We did that with Roger Grigg and his company and his son Dargan. And
wow.
So I did actually sold, my biggest deal I think I ever sold was the McLeod Hospital deal there in Carolina Forest.
Really?
We put that deal together.
Holy cow!
So that was a real good one.
It's a monster.
Yeah, it's a monster. And, it's good when you're in house and you have access to a lot of property or knowledge of the property, and then we know what certain people are looking for. So all that kind of worked out well.
Well, I want to get into the day-to-day and the operations of the amusement world, but how did that hospital deal come together? Like, how did they approach the county, and then that trickles down to?
No, it had nothing to do with the county. It actually came from somebody that I knew that was on the board at McLeod.
Really?
Had relayed to me that they had excess money that they were spending in the market, and they wanted to locate in the Carolina Forest area to grow their footprint. And I said, well, I got the perfect piece for you. And just met with their head of developments. Really? And just started the conversation, sent them the maps and everything else, and the rest is history.
How long did that take beginning to end, from like that initial conversation to like getting them to close on the land or commit to developing?
About a year and a half.
That's it?
Yeah.
That seems pretty quick.
Yeah, they were eager. They were eager to move, and we had the property, so it kind of worked out pretty well.
Was there already one in Little River at this time?
Okay. Yeah, they were already out there
in the market,
seacoast. Yes.
Got it. Interesting. So winding back the clock a little bit to the amusement park. So we can touch on your dad too here if you want, but from everything I've heard from other local guys and read as well, like your dad seemed to be certainly a bit of a pioneer, right? A lot of whether it's the bumper cars or boats or even just the racing, a lot of this redefined the industry for amusement parks, certainly, bringing these in and commoditizing almost the funness of it, I suppose, right? Yeah. I'm just curious, like, what was he like in starting it? Did he just have ideas? Was he just extremely entrepreneurial? He would just try different stuff and fail? Like, what was he like? How was he able to kind of connect on a lot of these,
I'd say my dad's a gambler.
Yeah.
And he lays it out there. He gets an idea and he goes after it. And he had this idea to drive real race cars, and he put it together, and it was a very successful business. Wow. And we grew that business, multiple go-kart tracks, and then he had the Hydro Fighter, which he found a guy. It was a swing that held by cables and by a fire hose, and then it had a fire hose lever that you could swing back and forth on a molded seat back to back, and you'd swing up back and forth to spin around.
Really?
Yeah, it was a pretty cool ride called the Hydro Fighter. And we actually built one, helped design it with the original designers for George Millay for Wet and Wild down in Orlando.
Really?
George was the founder of SeaWorld and originally, and we got to know him through the Water Park Association and the Amusement Park Association.
Wow. And
George was intrigued by this ride, so it's torn down now, but if you ever had gone to Wet and Wild in Orlando, they had two of them.
Interesting.
Dual Hydro Fighters. There's only three in the world, and ours and his too. So pretty cool deal.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So after your dad kind of starts to build the company, right? What you've done with the company and your brother is just as impressive, if not more, right? You're able to scale it, and especially because our space here in Myrtle Beach and Horry County has become exponentially more competitive with, you know, all these different campgrounds we have, all these other amusement parks. So at what point, kind of walk me through, like, when did you get fully immersed into, I guess it would have been when you were a partner or when you turned it to a family business. Mm-hmm. What did you see as the opportunity to scale the business at the time? Or like, where did you see, hey, Dad, this is great, but where did you see the flaws? Or like, what did you think was your strength?
Well, about 10 years ago, I was actually about done with the amusement business.
Yeah.
We still had Wild Water left.
Yep.
And it was struggling. It's struggled for a long time. It's just a tough location, a lot of maintenance, and a lot of other issues there. So we struggled with it. So I was really getting into the real estate pretty heavy at that time, doing that. And one day, the new CEO of Burrs and Chapin, which I never mentioned the name, but that's who we had our 25-year lease with. Right. It was Burrs and Chapin originally. So
this is who, Jim Apple?
Jim Apple, okay. Yeah. So I was talking to Jim one day, and new CEO, just introduced myself to him and talking about things. And I told him the story of how we had leased their property for 25 years and basically wouldn't renew it and paying them a lot of money. And one day he called me and says, "Tell me that story again." And I told him, and he said, "Well, look," he says, "I've got an opportunity. Don't know if you'd be interested, but and we had already talked about this a little bit." Right. He says, "But I've got an asset, which is NASCAR Speed Park, and we're the person that's leasing it now. We're getting ready to dissolve that, and we can't let that asset sit idle. And with your background and everything we know, I think it'd be a great idea for you to come manage it for us or operate it for us." So Jim and I met with Chad Carlson, who's now their CFO and head of development. We all three met and formed a management company. So I have a management agreement with them to operate the Broadway, which we renamed it Broadway Grand Prix. Took the NASCAR name off of it and have taken it from where it was really struggling to doing really well today. So took knowledge that we had from the past and I put that into play. And then
what year was that you converted it to?
That was in 94, I guess it was. Was that 90? No, 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, or 2014. Yeah, 2014. That's what it was. And so we did that in 2014, and then 6 years ago, this is our 6th year, I kept on them about Myrtle Waves. I knew there was an opportunity there at Myrtle Waves.
Did they own that too?
They owned they didn't own the assets.
They owned the ground lease?
But they owned the ground lease, the ground, and another company, which was C&L Lifestyles, which was a REIT at the time. And they had, the same operator that was operating the Grand Prix was operating the Myrtle Waves. And they split up from him also, from his company. So they hired a management team just to come in, and that management team ran it for a few years just to keep the asset alive for C&L.
Right.
Come to find out, their REIT was timing out. They were selling all their assets to another REIT called EPR. And I knew the gentleman that he actually used to own all the Six Flags parks.
Really?
He had started another park company called Premier Parks, which is publicly traded.
Wow.
He basically leases or operates all of EPR's amusement parks. So I called him and I said, "Look, it looks like you're coming into town to take over Myrtle Waves. Let me sell you Wild Water and Wheels." I said, "There only needs to be one operator in town."
Yeah.
Tried it anyway, and he says, Kieran Burke's his name. Kieran says, "Mark," he says, he said, "that's really not in our demographic area and where we have our parks. It's going to be a little stretch for us to really operate it." He says, "I'll just sell you Myrtle Waves." And I said, "Well," "you're going to want way too much for that." So he said, "You might be surprised." So I
it's an interesting way to negotiate.
Yeah. I said, "Well, give me a number."
Right.
And he did, and I said, "Well, let me look at it for a little bit." And I went and checked it out. I called him back. I said, "Kieran, you're way off." And so I offered him less than half for it. And he says, okay, I'll take it.
No way.
And so I didn't have the money to do it.
Of course.
So I went to Jim and Chad at Burrs and Chapin. I said, hey, maybe this is a great opportunity for you to own your asset, really control your property again instead of having outside source.
Right.
Here's my plan. I gave my business plan, how we would do it and everything. And I'll never forget, we walk into the park the first day for Jim to tour it. And Jim looks at it, he looks around, the place was really, really in bad shape. And Jim looks at me and says, whose idea is this? I said, trust me, Jim, we're going to do okay. And so anyway, we worked it out, and they wound up buying the asset. I signed a 30-year lease with them, and we've been there 6 years, and we've more than tripled the revenues that were coming in at the time, just by putting some TLC and some life experiences that we've had operating the parks. But it's a great location. It's an A location where Wild Water's a C location. Yeah. So the rest is history. We've been doing really well, knock on wood, blessed with a great staff and great story to a lady that's now our assistant director of operations. The first day on the job, she had been hired by the new company, Kieran Burke's company.
Oh, wow.
Who was going to come in. She was going to work for them at Myrtle Waves.
And
that was the day that we took over. And she walked in. I said, well, I said, Alicia, you can stay. If we would like for you to stay, but I understand.
If you don't want to.
She says, "Well, I've already moved to Myrtle Beach. I'll just stay." She's been with us, and she's moved up from basically doing revenue management to our assistant director of operations.
Wow, that's a great story.
Doing really well.
So, as it stands right now, Burrs and Chapin owns the land for both, but they own also the assets. Yes. Of Myrtle Waves, but you're the operator. Your company, Lazarus Entertainment, is the operator of both parks.
Right.
But do you own the assets at Broadway?
No, they own that. I'm under a management agreement
for both.
For that one.
Oh, okay.
For Broadway Grand Prix, I'm under a management agreement.
Yep.
And at Myrtle Waves, we actually have a lease.
Oh, interesting.
So we have a 30-year lease with them on that one.
Wow. So the intricacies of what would it be called? Like the amusement industry or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Amusement water park industry.
Okay. So when you look at just like that almost as real estate, right? Like you have all of your standard operating costs when it comes to the land, but that all gets rolled into your lease that you're leasing back from the folks. How do you look at the business? Like what is most critical in operations? Is it really just driving more people year over year? Is it slightly like increasing prices on rides? Is it getting people to stay in the park for a longer amount of time? Like how does the business how do you operate these parks? Like what do you look for?
Well, it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
One is your biggest expense is your employees.
Yeah.
It takes 100. I think we have 150 people on staff during the summer at Myrtle Waves.
Wow.
So probably another 150 at the Grand Prix too. So your staff is the biggest, and since 2019, COVID was a tough time. 2019, our employee expense is up about 40%. So we've raised our prices a little bit
due to
just the economy. Where we were paying $8 for a lifeguard. Today we start at $14, $15 an hour, and that's just the economy, wherever you got to compete for it, and so we've had to manage our hours of operations, make sure that we're not operating in hours that we're not making money. We've worked on offerings in the parks for people to spend more money, whether it's buying a cabana or a food option or extra fee for our flow rider. We went to RFID bands this year.
I saw that.
Yeah, so you can load money onto your band and load it onto your kids' bands.
I was going to ask him, how does that come about? So that's the cashless cashless technology. Was that a huge rollout or integration? I feel like that's a big buying process, buying any bit of software, but also integrating this new process with one, accounting and kind of money in, money out of the company, but also employees and processes of waiting in line. So how did that all unwind?
Yeah, it was big. I mean, we had a whole team, and actually my director of operations now, Garrett Watts, who's actually my son-in-law also. That was his deal. He took it on, and really him and Alicia did a great job with it. We went with a company called Acesso. Acesso does universal Universal Studios. They do a lot of the bigger water parks.
Right.
Bigger companies. They've done Disney work before. So when we did it, there were smaller companies out there, but we wanted to go with ones that were really integrated and could supply us what we needed. So we did, and it's worked out well. We originally started with a company called Intercard, and we just did our arcade games. So we were on tokens at the time.
Okay, I saw that.
Yeah. So we went from tokens to the cards, and the cards, we basically tripled our revenue in 1 year in our arcade. Just it's subliminally, people are spending money.
Yeah.
If they're putting money in, they know what's coming out of their pocket once they load a card. It's like Disney.
Willy-nilly.
You learn it from Disney. We learn. That's why we go to the trade shows and everything, and we learn a lot from the trade shows and from other operators, and my philosophy is I don't always have the best ideas, but somebody else does.
That's right. That's true.
So pay attention and learn. So that's what we do.
It sounds like Garrett had a pretty good idea here, converting to the cashless. How did he pitch you on that idea? Because I'm sure it's a pretty steep price tag and a large process conversion. Like, how did his idea come about, and then how did that get proposed to the team to make the conversion?
So we discussed it, and Garrett really did the research and brought it to us, and learning from what other people that did it in the industry and what it did for them, and then of course having to pay for it was the big thing, and we pitched it to Chad at Burrs and Chapin, who he's a big numbers guy.
Oh yeah.
And so we pitched it to Chad that this is going to help increase revenues, and it's the future. It's
100%.
What people ask for. Plus, it speeds your lines up when people are checking in.
Yeah.
We're going to go to kiosks eventually, where you just walk up to the kiosk, and load your armband on that, or get your armbands and things like that. So it was all about the numbers more than anything, and that we could increase productivity. It's a better experience for our customer. It's easier for our team to be able to process people, and eventually, ultimately, making more revenue. So and it all worked.
Absolutely. Over all the years, and especially in these post-COVID years or during COVID years, where we've had this immense growth in our county, how much, in looking back to 10 years from maybe Broadway or Myrtle Waves or even any of the parks that you've owned and operated here, it is such a competitive industry. How do you continue to offer a premier brand? I think the two locations you have here are obviously perfect. People see them, and every kid that drives by wants to go race cars, right? With it being so competitive, how do you continue to retain market share or get market share year after year? Because it seems a bit of a dogfight, because we have this not short season, it's a rather long season, I guess, 4, 5, 6 months of this tourism. It seems to be getting longer. But how do you kind of notch your spot each year to drive a ton of people in there? Like how hard is that every year over year?
It's hard, and we deal with the weather. There's always a lot of factors. This year's been a fantastic year for weather from June through today. It's been great. The fall was a little off at the Grand Prix because the weather was a little rough, but you have a lot of factors in there. But the biggest thing you have to put back into your business. There's a lot of people in this industry that just take, and don't put back. And you've got to put back. You've got to paint. You've got to clean. You got to add new attractions and things like that. This past year at Myrtle Waves, for example, we added probably 250, 300 seats. We knew by closing Wild Water we would get bigger, so we had to be prepared for it. Refiberglass, re-gel coated some of the slides. We went and really fixed up our bathrooms that added air conditioning in our bathrooms, and we fixed up some of our food offerings and things like that. So this year, coming into this year, we're adding a new slide. I'm not supposed to be telling people that yet, but it's sitting in the parking lot right now, so everybody kind of knows it. But we'll be putting up a new slide, and then we're going to add some more seating areas. We've added a new area called the Venue at Myrtle Waves, which is a big picnic area with a volleyball court and games. And we got a big screen TV, so we're going to be kind of leasing it out, renting it out in the off season also for sports people that want to give their sporting teams trophies and things like that, family reunions, team building.
Yeah.
Fantasy football league might want to have a
absolutely.
barbecue or
It's a
something.
great
We're all
venue.
set up to cook and everything. We have a full liquor license there, so we can do your beer, wine, drinks.
Is that the beer garden?
The beer garden,
okay.
yeah, we have that too. So we've added those things, and so we're going to add a lot of stuff this year. At the Grand Prix, we're been authorized this year already to buy a whole new fleet of cars for 3 of our go-kart tracks. We're doing that. We're looking into our slick track and possibly going electric on our indoor track, where right now it's gas. Upgrading it, buying a couple of new arcade machines, the newest and the latest, and a lot of paint and tender love and care in the place. But,
What is the hardest part besides, I think, and we've spoke about this before, but just getting employees each year, obviously, because it's such you need so much seasonal labor. You have a lot of full-time folks too, but besides maybe employment, what is the hardest part about operating these attractions, right, where there's so many families coming in, a lot of pressure, right? People are traveling in a van, getting out, and they want everything to go so smooth. What's the biggest challenge you think in operating any of these businesses?
Well, it's over the years we've put in a lot of operations that work and kind of do pretty well with that. It's always a challenge as the employees, getting them trained. We hire a lot of J1 kids. It's just not that we don't want to hire local kids. You just can't get enough.
That's right.
Plus schools are going back earlier and earlier now, so that cuts into your season. So if I don't hire the J1s, I don't have any kids to operate for a couple of weeks when we're still really busy. The northern schools are still out. So it's a great supplement. They're great kids. They're all, go to school. They're all in college. They're really good kids. So our challenge has been housing for these kids. When you get them here, you got to have somewhere to house them. So in 2025, we'll open up our first J1 housing facility.
I've heard about this.
Here in Myrtle Beach. We'll house probably 1,200 kids in our first phase of it. And we partnered with a company called Holtz Builders out of Wisconsin. And
they do a lot of this.
They've got about 7 of them so far up in the Wisconsin Dells. They doing one at Dollywood. They just broke ground in somewhere else in Tennessee. So they're really good at what they do, and they have a company called IRH, International Residence Halls. So they'll operate it and run it for us, and then it'll give us the ability when we're out recruiting the kids through the services that bring the kids here to offer a good, clean, safe place for these kids to live.
Absolutely. And what's the makeup of the build? Is it like similar to a dorm style living? Is it different? Like it's like college housing almost? It's
kind of like college housing. There's 2 bunk beds in each room, bathroom, vanity, refrigerator, and a microwave. Downstairs, there'll be a common area where it'll have ovens where they can together cook. We'll have a laundromat for them. We'll have Wi-Fi, games, all that kind of stuff to make it really fun environment for them when they're not working. So, they have a good place.
And will that house other J1 kids, others than just the ones that work for you? Because we have such
I mean, I usually use about 140 is what we hire. There's 4,500 right now that are coming to Myrtle Beach area. So, we'll eventually, at our build out on this location, is about 3,600. Wow. So we'll be able to house a good majority of them, but not all of them.
I'm sure they'll
want to live there. I mean, there's
but a lot will.
a lot won't. We have rules sometimes too.
In transitioning kind of to the last couple segments here, or last chunk, we can take this wherever you want, but on each episode, we usually talk about one deal. Could be an acquisition, could be buying a park, it could be selling a tract of land. Is there any deal story that you want to share intricacies of, or process or challenges of? That we do. I know we talked about a couple.
It was mentioned today, and this one I made $0 off of, but and that's fine too. But it was a great transaction. The R.J. Corman Railroad. That was a really tough negotiation, and we had a railroad as when I was chairman of Horry County. we had a railroad, and that's one of the spokes in the wheel of economic development. You got to have a port
Yep.
or access to a port.
That's right.
Which we have Wilmington on one side of us and Charleston on the other side.
right.
Then you got to have an interstate, which we don't have.
That's right.
So the other spoke is a rail line, and we had a railroad, but it was not operating.
Oh, wow.
And so the committee was formed by Doug Wendell, and it was North Carolina, South Carolina. So this was really unusual for the two states to come together.
Yeah.
And I got involved in it as chairman and really kind of took the lead with Doug on this thing. And Dennis Worley, who's from Tabor City, was a lawyer. He helped us kind of put it together. So the three of us really, along with all the other players involved, put it together. And we found R.J. Corman, which was the largest single line railroad use that there is.
Really?
And they're out of Kentucky. And so we started negotiating with them, and it was tough to get it between us and Columbus County and Horry County and Marlboro County and all that. So anyway, we finally pulled that together, and then the biggest trick is they could only run 10 miles an hour on the existing line. On the existing line.
Yeah.
They really needed to get up to 30 miles an hour to be able to haul other freight. So at the time, they were only hauling like wood product for Canfor.
Right.
They hauled some stuff for Met Glass and some other small things. Atlantic Paper up in Tabor City, they were doing some stuff. But we really needed them to bring in rock for our road building projects and stuff for our road builders here and be able to hit some other industries. So we went to D.C. a bunch of times fighting for a Tiger grant and to get $3.5 million. So at the time, Henry Brown was our congressman and Lindsey Graham. They really worked hard with us and introduced us to the right people, got in front of the Transportation Committee, and we were able to secure $3.5 million for R.J. Corman for a Tiger grant, which they had to match, and they were willing to write the check. So they did. So if you go out and see all this work on the rail line between here and Columbus County today, that's efforts of that Tiger grant. So they're up to where they can run 30 miles an hour and be really efficient. And from what I understand, they're doing really, really well bringing in freight. So that helps with when we're selling economic development to other people. So that was really a great one, fun. The other one was dealing with the airport. Horry County runs the airport. So I got to be front end of negotiations with Delta Airlines and Spirit, for rampways and things like that, and where their position was, and those were some fun negotiations. And you have a lot of skin in the game because it's for your community.
Absolutely.
But no personal gain, no personal funds. But those were really fun to learn the insides of really big time negotiations.
Absolutely.
There. So that was fun. But then, on the real estate side, I mentioned McLeod Hospital was one of the probably biggest ones that I did. I've done a bunch of deals, with the D.R. Hortons of the world, Pulte, selling
with Waccamaw.
With Waccamaw, doing homeland development, selling to them, to land developers. So been doing a lot of that, so it's a lot of fun.
Especially the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Are they buying like options contracts on the land, like to use later? Because they're
no, we don't do that.
Okay.
We strictly sell. We don't.
Interesting.
We don't drag things out.
I like it.
Either you're gonna buy or not. We got too many buyers out there, and we got prime property. So. A lot of it was off of Highway 90. We did the big Sun Communities deal out there that was for the campground.
Yep.
And then all the land surrounding it, they were called the bear tracks.
Wow.
And I've got the last piece of the one that I've got, we're working through it now. We'll close on the last phase of it after the first of the year. And then the Palmetto Coast Industrial Park that Sandy Davis was talking about today. So we did that with a company called Edgewater out of Wilmington.
Yep.
And that was a big negotiation too. That was probably one of my proudest ones. We just, it took us over 2 years, 2.5 years almost to get that one done.
And Edgewater's the developer they acquired?
They're the developer. They're out of Wilmington. They're one of the largest warehouse developers, spec building developers for industrial parks out there. And, that was a tough one. That's probably my proudest one for myself personally. Putting that together, being able to get Edgewater, and then I had to get the.
Why so? What defined
Well,
it?
they were very particular about what they wanted, and a lot of moving parts in it, and had to get the property rezoned through North Myrtle Beach, which did they really want an industrial park there, and how was that going to? So we came up with the idea of the Palmetto Coast Industrial Park, which brings a lot of tax revenue to North Myrtle Beach. And then, the big home run was we got UPS in there, which was huge. My counterpart, Charles Henson, who's not with us today, but Charles really put that one together. And then Charles and I worked on the rest of it together. And then the home run was getting Pepsi to come in. They were getting ready to relocate to North Carolina. So, we pulled everybody together we could think of, from the governor, down to our EDC, to everybody, to say, hey, this is what we got to do. And of course, Edgewater was on the front end of it. They had dealt with their developers before, the Pepsi, and so we kind of maneuvered it around and got them in. So they finished that building, and we're on they're building another 160,000 square foot spec building right now, and hopefully getting ready to get a contract on another 34 acres for them to finish out that industrial park there. So I'm really proud of that one, because it's brought significant economic development to the area. Plus, as Sandy said today, you got to have buildings to sell people. People, it's amazing the lack of vision that people have. No, I can't imagine that there, but I need a building. So we've lost a lot of companies that wanted to locate here, but they wanted a building immediately, and we didn't have any available. So now we're speccing buildings, and heard about Marlborough County, their developer. So it's coming along good.
That is. Those are 4 or 5 amazing deals. And wrapping up, what's next for you personally and for both of the parks you operate? So, what are you focused on now? Season just unwinded. I know we couldn't schedule for a while because you're working day and night during the season. So, what's the focus now for the entertainment group and gearing for next year? And I think you already touched on some of the new enhancements, but anything else that we missed?
Yeah, so my daughter and son-in-law are basically running the operations. The operational side, I'm still on the inside there too. But the day-to-day operations, they really got a great handle on. So we've got a great team, and my focus is to how do we expand our business. I'm getting them the capital to do the new things within the parks, and then we look for other opportunities, potential opportunities that. Maybe another park or another type of entertainment facility. My daughter, our middle daughter, she just opened up her restaurant called Lacka Eats, right
which is
off
great.
of Grissom. It's a very healthy food place. Quick story, really proud of her. She started out, she worked on mega yachts
in South Africa or something.
She traveled the world really. And when she was in Italy, she actually got really sick. And had to deal with Italian doctors, and they diagnosed her with type 1 diabetes. And we were like, whoa, where'd this come from? It's not in our family, but I got her home. She took it on and really managed it and done well, but it turned her into a really healthy eating type situation.
Really?
She had gotten to be real good friends with a lot of the chefs on the boats that she was working on. So they all went to chef school in South Africa, in Cape Town. So she said, that's what I want to do. I know that's what I want to do. So she had an arts management and accounting degree from College of Charleston, and started working on the boats. So she goes to chef school in South Africa. She learns about grab and go concept and all this different types of foods and stuff. And so came back, and she started cooking really out of my other daughter's kitchen and doing deliveries.
Wow.
And then we moved her over to our what we call our funnel cake shack at Little Waves. She was working out of there doing deliveries. And then finally got her first location at a workplace at St. James. and then just moved into the old croissants and full service restaurant, breakfast and lunch. And
coffee's great. Everything's
coffee's
good.
great. Yeah. So really proud of her. So we've put that under the Lazarus Entertainment label too.
Awesome.
So for marketing purposes, everything that we put out, we give
Co-brand.
co-brand it and all that. So, we're looking for those types of opportunities for the kids. They're young, energetic, want to grow. So we'll keep expanding. And for me, I'll keep an eye on the pulse of that. Keep them going.
Yeah.
Got 3 grandkids now.
Busy man.
That's the thing now. So, politics. I think I'm gonna work behind the scenes more. Don't know that I'll run for office again.
Sure.
But kind of find some good young people like yourself.
I appreciate
that could get involved and be in politics and support them and kind of help guide that and enjoy my grandkids and do some traveling with my wife and enjoy life a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. Last question. Along the way, I think similar story for kind of every guy that builds a good development company, operating company, a bank, whatever it may be. No one really does it on their own. Besides your dad, who do you think helped you the most along the way, or maybe who'd you learn the most from as an operator or in the deal space, whether at the county or with Keith? Who were a couple of the guys you think that you learned the most from?
Sure. Well, I have a lot of people through the amusement industry that I learned from, and I was on the board of directors for the International Amusement Park Association, so I met a lot of really big operators and family operators, and we always had tabletop discussions and stuff. So we all learned from each other, and so that was a great experience for me being on that board and meeting all these people. But here locally, I got other than my dad. Three guys. Mike Hogan. Mike was in the insurance business. Mike was a partner of our family in a couple of ventures, but Mike became a very dear friend and great mentor to me. And I talked to him half this morning, about different things, and he guides me. But him and then Roger Grigg Roger's just been a great mentor and business partner and done some stuff with him. And then Keith Henson at Waccamaw Land and Timber has really taught me the real estate business.
Really?
Yeah, Keith, has got a vast background in timber sales and companies that he worked for starting out, here with Canal Industries with Mr. Wall, him and Mr. Wall. Mr. Wall really taught Keith a lot.
Oh, wow.
About, so
funny
I got you don't talk about a bigger icon than Mr. Wall in this industry. And so Keith learned from Mr. Wall a good bit, and then I got the opportunity to learn from Keith and his brother Charles. Were great mentors of mine. So those guys in that world have just been really, really my support.
Yeah, I love it. Any last kind of parting words? Anything else coming up that we missed, or any part of your story that we missed in wrapping up?
No, I think we covered it pretty good.
So
it's an exciting time, and thank you for having me here.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, maybe somebody learned something from it.
I think they will. I appreciate it, Mark. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.